Speaking of which, so now that we've started, we will take questions. Ask your questions about Null Sec, how you will.
So what's the difference between Null Sec and, say, Low Sec or High Sec?
So Null Sec is 0, and below. It has things called bubbles. Bubbles stop you from warping. It also has bombs. Bombs are exactly as they sound. They go down, they blow up, do lots of damage in an area of effect. As well as you don't take any sec status for shooting anybody, so it's not protected by Concord in any way. So you're free game.
What should ship should I fly when I move out to Null?
Depends on what the FCs want, but usually you should be able to fly Interceptor because Interceptors are bubble immune and they make traveling around in Null Sec not complete shit.
Burn tax. Learn to use goddamn tax, dude. Everywhere. All over the place. Make your own tax.
I mean, using Interceptors 10 times easier.
Yeah, well, not all. Honestly, some people even have trouble with Interceptors, let's be real.
Anyone who has trouble with Interceptors has serious issues.
You do realize you're talking to brave newbies, right?
It doesn't matter. That newbies doesn't mean stupid.
What if they can't fly an Interceptor? What should they do?
So, without Interceptors, you are going to have to use tax and as well as bounce between Celestials and such to try and avoid bubbles, but Null Sec will be 10 times worse for you if you cannot fly Interceptors. You should train for Interceptors.
So, if I can't fly an Interceptor, which ships should I, or are the next best thing?
The next best thing is the Luxury Yacht. It was a gift given to all players a little bit ago for the AT. Or no, for Worlds Collide, wasn't it? Yeah, Worlds Collide. But if you don't have one, they are actually... you can buy some of the blueprints for cheap, but like the ships are like 80 mil, but those are the next best thing. As they are bubble immune and can co-ops cloak.
Aren't they then even better because they can also cloak?
So they're not even better because it's really hard to get them in the under 2 second align category like you can Interceptors. So, not particularly. They're as good, and they have smaller cargo holds, so they're almost as good, but they're not quite there.
Okay.
Any other questions? Come on, guys. You got more questions than that about Null Sec.
So are there any like, besides, say, Interceptors, are there any, like, Dictors, Hictors? How do those work, kind of in the...
Dictors and Hictors are bubblers. So Dictors launch what's called a warp disruption probe, which means they can then proceed to leave that area. So they can launch a bubble and then burn away from it, and then warp out once they're outside the bubble. Hictors perform a bubble around themselves. They're heavy interdiction cruisers. They put a bubble around themselves and then just kind of travel around, and they're a mobile bubble. Dictor bubbles run out. Hictor bubbles only once the Hictor decides that he doesn't want to have it up anymore.
So you've mentioned bubbles a couple of times now. How do they work?
So bubbles have some very simple mechanics and then some slightly not as simple mechanics. The very simple mechanics are if you're inside a bubble, and it's a warp disruption field, you cannot warp. Unless you're in an interdiction nullified ship, be it an Interceptor, the Luxury Yacht, or a T3 cruiser with the interdiction nullification subsystem. If you're not in those, then you are no longer... you cannot warp out of those bubbles. So you have to burn out of the bubble if you want to warp. Then there are some less obvious mechanics called dragging stop bubbles, Drag bubbles when you land on a grid with a bubble. If it is in your line from which you warp, it will pull you into the bubble, meaning if you warp to a gate and there is a bubble behind the gate, you will end up in the bubble, not on the gate. And then they will kill you and you will die. And then there are stop bubbles, which are exactly as they sound. Rather than it being behind the gate, it is in front of the gate. And again, if it's on grid and you're going to land there, it will instead pull you into the bubble.
But this is not different kinds of bubbles, it's just where you place them, right?
It does, yes, it's just where you place them and they're just called different. Literally, there's only one type of bubble in that it's a warp disruption field. It's just there's different versions of said bubbles. So there's the Dictor bubble, which is a warp disruption probe that can be smart bombed or bombed. Then there's the Hictor bubble, which does the same thing as the Dictor bubble. It's just produced by a different thing. And then there's the anchored bubbles, which can actually be targeted and shot with guns, but they still behave all the same way. There's just different things providing.
Is it, since these bubbles can be smart bombed sometimes, is it customary for like fleets to have a dedicated smart bomb pilot or something, or some kind of capability to clear them, or do you just deal with them?
So usually if you're in not capitals, which, you know, you won't be, your smart bombs aren't going to do enough damage or be useful enough to actually pop the bubbles 90% of the time. So you'll just move out of the bubble. Unless, you know, you're defensive bubbling to help prevent bombers.
Could you explain the drag bubble again? Is it just so that like when you randomly warp land somewhere around a gate, that it's just to pull you out behind? I don't really understand how it pulls you into the bubble.
All right, so if you look at the
If it's behind the gate.
if you look at what I've linked, you can see exactly a picture there on how it will work. So how it works is, say you warp from point A to point B, there is a line, right? So from point A to point B, you have to come in a line. If in that line they put a bubble behind the gate, in that line, you will land in the bubble. You will not land on gate.
Regardless how far from the gate?
It doesn't matter. Usually. I don't know what the grid changes, whether they've made it so it's only a certain range. It used to be if it was on grid, you would land on it. But now that they've changed...
There is a range limit.
There is there now?
When they've tested it, there's a Reddit post, I forget what it is exactly, but there is a limit.
Okay, well, yeah. I don't know, now that they've changed grid sizes. It used to be if it was on grid, you'd land in it. But... that is good to know that there is a limit.
I'll see if I can look it up while you're talking.
Alright. Any other questions?
So the other day, I was just doing some Null Sec exploration, and I went into a dead-end system, and there were a lot of bubbles on the gate. And so based on what I relayed, other people said, oh, that's probably just a place where people are doing production, very expensive production. Is there any other case of like activities people do in Null Sec that you can kind of sleuth or metagame around? Like, oh, I see this, this, and this. That means these people are probably doing this in this place. So
things like stay out of systems, deals that you see pop up usually indicate one of three things. Super cap production, where they like bubble, so they want to be making supers in their passes, so they'll want to keep that really protected. It also could indicate just ratting and mining, meaning they want to be able to do these things in safety. And so those would be the reasons. So anytime you like, if you see a deal or something where there's stay out of X systems, those will be why. But yeah, just bubbles usually indicates that, but anything like that tends to, they want to protect that system. Now the reason varies between those three, but those tend to be the indicators.
Charlie, I think the distance is 1,000 kilometers.
I thought it was, I didn't want to say it without checking.
Yeah. I knew it was, I mean, knew it.
You hot, Mikey?
Am I? Oh, Hadrian.
Hi, Adrian.
Anyway, any other questions?
What's a good way for me to make money out there?
So there's Xflow, which you can still do now. There's also ratting, which is shooting NPCs in anomalies. And that gives you what's called ticks, and that gives you ISK, just straight to your wallet. There's importing if you have a jump freighter. If you don't have a jump freighter, honestly, wouldn't suggest it. Market trading, just like anywhere. But those are kind of the main deals with them. With Null Sec. I cannot honestly suggest mining.
Be able to wrap.
Hmm?
Can a new bro wrap in Null Sec?
Yes. Within 10 days, you can get into a decent ratting ship. You can get into a Vexer within 10 days from 0.
Anything a new bro can do before that?
So ratting before that, you can use the algos, but it's going to be really bad, and it's basically not worth it. In terms of ISK or time. You'll spend more time trying to do it than you'll make an ISK. Like, honestly, at that point, you'd probably be better mining an adventure, and mining's pretty shit. So, like, realistically, before the Vexer, there isn't much.
What about gas and ice mining?
Gas and ice is very situational, because the problem with all mining, and even ratting to an extent, is that you probably shouldn't be doing it in hostile systems, which means people coming in. Luckily, ratting, you have some sort of defense. Mining, you're pretty much defenseless. You don't have any really things that do damage, or at least with ratting, you do have drones and such that can shoot things that come after you. So, mining tends to be a very defenseless activity.
Do you mean that in the sense of, like, shooting back at a random guy that's just moving through, or do you mean it in the sense of sometimes there will be NPCs at these ore sites and you have to shoot them in order to be able to mine in peace?
A bit of both, bit of column A, bit of column B. There are NPCs that sometimes spawn in these and will shoot at you, but mainly it's if someone neutrals in system, you're not going to be able to mine safely, which means you're risking quite a bit. Usually, especially if you're like ice mining and such, you're going to generally be using like a procurer, which is, 20 mil or whatever, and you're risking that, and you're not quite making it back very quickly. Plus, ice is also very large, so then you have to try and transport it places, where the benefit there with ratting being it just goes straight to your, it's just ISK that pops in your wallet.
So the loot is not interesting, just the
loot and salvage is a mere drop in the bucket compared to the actual ISK ticks. When you first start off, the salvage is probably alright, only because, you're not getting the best ticks because your skills aren't great, but once you move up out of the Vexer and into the VNI, at that point, unless you have an ult that can do it, like generally letting someone else salvage and loot your sites is probably fine.
Yeah, which is also something that you can either do as a very new player, so ask people with more skill points if they would let you salvage their sites, or the other way around, if you have the skill points, offer some new bro, or in general just offer people that they can salvage your sites for you, because that way, well, they make some money and it doesn't cost you anything.
Mm-hmm. Any other questions?
What is the real benefit of Null? I mean, why do I want to be there?
So, Null. Well, no. So Null is good ratting. It's got the better explo sites. It's a better PvE environment in terms of you can do better, more valuable PvE. The mining's better. Pretty much everything's better. That also has bubbles and bombs. The downside being, if you live in a Sov Null station, you have the possibility of getting locked away from all of your stuff. And actually coming to that point while I'm here, you should follow the 7-20-10 rule with your assets. 70% of your junk should be in high sec. 20% of it should be in your high sec staging point. And then 10% of your junk should be in your Sov Null station. And that is to prevent you from getting screwed. If you don't, then, well, you can ask anyone, you can ask a lot of people who are in GE what happens if you don't follow that rule.
Still have 300 mil though.
Yeah. So.
Can those stations be destroyed? I mean,
No.
you are just locked out for some time, probably forever.
Yeah,
but...
definitely.
Pretty much. Until you somehow manage to take that station back, you're locked out indefinitely. Which means your stuff is locked in there. You can try and sell it, but people aren't generally going to be buying it because they're not staging out of that system. So,
okay.
functionally, your
Don't risk
stuff, there's no reason to risk it.
But you will have the same, like, evacuation time like in Faction Warfare, right?
No.
More or less.
Not necessarily.
Because the thing about it is, in Faction Warfare, all you need is a neutral character. In Null Sec, you need someone in the group that currently holds its corp. Or someone...
Yeah, of course. But you know beforehand. I mean, like 24 hours before it's lost or something.
Jump freight and pray is a stupid fucking tactic. Just follow the 10% rule. Don't be dumb. Like
they can hell camp it, and then you can technically get it out. But good luck.
Extraction from soft null stations is extremely difficult, even with the model. The new sovereignty changes, although it can be free ported, there's nothing stopping the other guys from hell camping you into the station.
Exactly.
For reference, in
So
And
just
of course, you could just be AFK for a week because you're on vacation or something, and in the meantime, your staging system gets taken, which unfortunately you had 90% of your ISK in, and then you're pretty much fucked. And nothing you can do.
Yeah,
Trust me.
That is why you follow the
It's
7.
really stressful.
That's why you follow the 7-20-10 rule, because then, they took the Sov, whatever. I still have 80% of my shit or whatever. Well, that seemed bad math. 90% of my shit, still in a place that's safe, that cannot be taken from me, and I can always access. So, like, it doesn't drop you if you do. And that is one of the biggest mistakes that people will make in this Sov campaign.
I was just going to add to that. Until you've been in it, when you're competing with every other person that wants to get their stuff out, it gets really stressful, really expensive. You will not like it, so plan for it.
Yep. Any other questions? Like, anything about Null?
I hear people use websites and stuff to help them navigate Null. Could you name some good ones?
I mean, generally .lan. I mean, just like anywhere in this game, .lan is your friend. .lan will always be your friend. It is one of the best friends in this game. It is a much better map than the Eve map. I would honestly suggest it very highly. Realistically, that's the only one I ever tend to use. I don't know, other people in here might use other websites, but just knowing what connects to where is a pretty nice thing, and knowing kind of the kills and shit.
And that's evemaps.lan.net?
Might want to mention something about expensive implants.
Yep, just unlike Null Sec, you will probably lose your pod when you die. Because you will be bubbled and you will die. So you can't warp out of it, unlike in Null Sec where you can't be bubbled. So you'll be in a warp disruption field, can't warp your pod out, and your expensive implants die. So in Null, avoid using implants such as high grade anything, unless you can easily afford to eat that loss.
How would I strategize my clone management around that? Like, can you only use jump clone in order to switch out? Because there's if you're skilled, you have 19 hours to wait between jump clone uses. So
yeah, that's the only way to save.
Is there any other mechanic that allows you to pop out of your car with your other implants?
Only jump clones.
So you would realistically know a day beforehand that your corporation is going to go out into Null Sec if you're always based in low or high sec.
Well, so we'll be based in Null. So you're gonna want to basically just not use expensive implants. Just full stop.
Hold on, Brave is moving to
Yes,
Null?
Brave is moving to Aquarius.
Is friendly relations with PH this time?
We have a non-invasion pact with PH and NARM.
That's good.
So returning back to the question.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, so the idea is that whenever I'm flying, I should never be using my high-grade implants in Null.
Unless you can afford to
if I can't afford to lose them. Yeah. So basically the idea would be I kind of still want to use attribute boosting implants to lower my skill. How do I reconcile those? Do I just
So those aren't high grades, those are just regular
use +3s instead of +5s or +4s.
Yeah, +3s are only 10 mil a pop.
It always depends on how much you can afford. If you're new to the game and can't then maybe downgrade from +3s to +1s or something.
And then common sense stuff just if you know you're going to be offline for a few days, then pop back into your high
basically.
There are two questions. You need to ask yourself: how active you're going to be. If you're not going to be particularly active, you can keep a jump clone with implants, jump into that and jump back when you want to do things in Null Sec. Traditionally, the way that people have done this, when their alliances or corporations have been deployed out to Null Sec, their pilots have been, what they do is they set a very long skill queue and then use remaps.
Yep. Basically, it follows the same evil. This isn't any different. Don't fly what you can't afford to lose. And that includes implants, because you are very likely to lose them in Null, unlike in Low.
So this is more like a general question, but also relates to Null. As I understand it, boosters are created using how do you call it, gas clouds from Null, but they're not really used that often. But I mean, how much is not often? How prolific is if I'm looking 1v1 roaming in Null for good fights? How do I recognize if someone is using a booster? Does it actually show an effect or something on their ship? And how probable is it, or how do I track down in the Z kill board or something like that? Oh, he was using a booster.
Well, so you won't know they're using a booster unless they die with it in their cargo. Basically, always assume that your opponents are drugged and linked.
Okay, does Lynx have a visual effect on their ship?
No.
But the ship that is broadcasting the Lynx doesn't have an effect.
You'll just always, they won't be on grid, they'll be somewhere hidden. Your best thing is just to assume that whoever you're fighting.
Yeah, but they'll be in local.
Yeah.
You also often can see it in the stats, like a ship might be going much faster than it should without links, for example. So that might be an indication that they are using links and or boosters, and so on. So look at what the ship is doing. If it outperforms what it should be doing, then that's the best indication for links. But always assume that they are being used, because many people can afford to use them. They're used for solo in Low Sec. They're definitely used for fleets in Null Sec. So always assume that the other guys have boosts and links ready.
That's good advice.
Any other ones? Anything about bombs? Anything about that?
Well, how do bombers work?
How do bombs work?
Is the obvious one.
Bombers are cloaky little bastards that fire bombs. They go. Well, that's what they are. They go 30 kilometers and explode in a 15-kilometer radius, damaging anything in the radius, or nuding, depending on the type of, or lock breaking, possibly, depending on the type of bomb. So there's 4 types of bombs. There's, all the 4 damage types, basically. Then there's the nuding bombs, which are called void bombs. And then there's the lock breaker bomb, which is never used.
Why
Because
not?
it's
I mean,
trash.
sounds powerful.
It doesn't guarantee a lock break. So you'd rather just do damage in its place.
What do you mean with lock break?
It has a chance to break targeting locks. So if you have someone locked up.
Everyone that is inside the... Like, does it remove the locks on anyone that is inside?
It has
or
a
does
chance.
it on anyone that is being
It has
targeted?
a chance to break all locks, meaning if I've got a lock on someone and someone lock break bombs me, there's a chance that I will not have that guy locked after the bomb explodes.
But if you are doing the locking and you're outside the radius, but your target is inside, will it break?
It only affects the ship.
Bombs do not use targeting.
Well, no, he's asking about lock breaking
You
bombs.
shoot them. Yeah, because he's mentioning targets, but a bomb doesn't target.
No,
You
but
just shoot it and he moves forward for 30 Ks.
Yeah, but we are talking about bombs that break
Yes,
the target.
you're on the
the
wrong.
bomb has to hit the person
Yeah.
who's targeting whatever.
It works just like an ECM burst.
Okay.
So what are the types of bombs while we're talking about a specific one?
I mean, there's thermal, like I said, I just want to, thermal, EM, explosive, and kinetic. They're just the normal 4 damage types, and then there's, like I said, the nudie bomb, which is voids and lock breaks. That's well, and then focused voids, which are just a subset of voids that newt more but explode in less of a radius. They're used mainly on capitals. In fact, you generally won't see them used anytime else.
Because they're really difficult to
Yeah.
hit the
Well,
target.
even they buff them, so they're slightly easier to hit.
Oh, what happens if you have several different types of bombs used in?
Yeah, if you do that, then the person who called for the different types of bombs to all bomb at the same time is an idiot, because bombs will blow each other up. Bombs have a damage resistance against their own type, so that you can launch 8 bombs if everyone has Covops 4, or you can launch 7 if everyone has Covops 5. And they all have to be the same type, otherwise the bombs will blow each other up. Obviously, if a bomb's exploded, either via smart bomb or via other bomb, it will do no damage. The bomber is blown up before the bomb explodes. Also, the bomb will do no damage. So these are how you deal with bombers: is smart bombs and anti-bomber ships.
So I've seen a few YouTube videos on like how to run a bomber fleet and like warping in formation and everything, and it looked very pretty, but I didn't really understand what was going on. How do you like effectively bomb targets?
The way that you do that is you have an experienced bomber FC usually. The bomber FC should have tacs or scans of where he's going, or where he's going to be fighting. And what he'll do is he'll warp a couple different squads. He'll warp a squad to a point and then tell them align to blob, bomb, warp out. And then he'll say decloak, so he'll give the decloak command, and that'll be the align bomb command. So it'll be like decloak, align bomb, warp, which is just very simple. Right? You decloak, you bomb your target, and then you warp away. So that you don't die, because if you die, then again, your bombs do no damage. It's just a matter of the FC being experienced. It really, being a bomber pilot is much like being an F1 monkey, you just follow orders. And accept your warps.
It's important to pay attention to which squad you're in.
But usually your squad leader will be an empty position that the FC moves himself into to warp you to his tags to where he wants you to be.
So they're like different types of bombing runs, right? So I don't know which video you watch, but you can have your simple bombing run, which is basically just warp in. FC warps you, you decloak, bomb, and you warp in front of you. And then you can get elaborate. This requires a lot of preparation. You can have what are called multi-axis bombing runs, where each squad is positioned at a different point, and then you bomb.
Yep. Multi-axis bombing is much less common under the new SOV rather than the old SOV, as you are no longer fighting over a single point. So, standard bombs tend to be much more common. Standard bombing tactic.
How does SOV work? How do I gain possession as a corp?
So you can't as a so you cannot as a corp. This is only an alliance thing. So if you're a corp, whatever, doesn't matter. It only matters if you're an alliance. Then the way it works is there's a few different parts to a SOV system. There's the TCU, which is the Territorial Claim Unit, the iHub, the Infrastructure Hub, and the Station. So those are the three different parts of the things. They can all be attacked independently of each other under the new SOV system. They can all be attacked at the same time. They will activate an Entosis link, which is a module that you can fit in the high slot of your ship. It uses Stront as it cycles. You lock it up and you do it. You cannot receive remote assistance while you're Entosis linking. And after a certain amount of time, this time is dependent upon the activity indexes, which is simple things like this is done by NPC kills, mining, and how long you've held the system. Those are the three indexes. How long you've held the system is called strategic. How many NPCs died is called military. And how much you mined is called industry.
Oh, is everybody learning how to null sec?
And then,
good shit.
So then after the Entosis link, after the timer is done, the reinforced timer, depending on what it is, different things will happen, but the same concept applies. So now these things will pop up called command nodes. Now what they have to do is they have to go into Entosis link command nodes, of which there are a number scattered through the systems, through the constellation that the system is in. So they have to Entosis link the command nodules. Depending on what thing it is, different things happen. I will see if I can't find the flowchart for you. Alright, here we go. This is how the new SOV system works in a flowchart form. You can see exactly what happens if you win the individual command nodes the first time. So for the first time, if the attackers wins, the TCU explodes. If they win on the iHub explodes. If they win on the station for the first time, it enters a free port mode for 48 hours, which means anyone can dock in it. And then if they win a second time, then the station gets owned by whoever won that one. So the second one is the one that matters for the station. But it all revolves around ntosis linking, which is much like orbiting a button, just with an ntosis link.
So, if someone claims sovereignty of a system and has, control of the station, they can stop you from entering. But I've once docked, and they just asked for like 6,000. Like there was a little pop-up. Like, what other surprises are there to like entering and exiting these stations?
That's what's called a free port, even though it's not quite free. They charge a docking fee, and they let pretty much anyone dock at them. These, however, are more the exception rather than the rule. It is almost never that way. It is better to assume that every Null Sec station will prevent every Sov Null station will not accept you docking there. That is.
Can you exclude certain people from docking while also charging money for everyone else?
You can say, I don't want these people on my station, but I want these people to, or let everyone else go, except for these. So if we wanted to, if we had a Sov Null station, which we do, and we will, we could exclude, say, anyone from test from entering that station, but we could let everyone else other than test in.
Is Test still based in Wicked Creek?
Should we start training capitals? And should we do that on our mains?
Everybody should train capitals all the time.
On your main is the answer here. Like, don't put capitals on your main. Like, just don't do it, because that is a lot of training time. As well as, especially considering the new cap rebalance coming out, but it's a lot of training time that you could be doing other fun stuff with. So if you start training for capitals, you miss out on a lot of other training. Now, if you finish every single other ship up to capitals, like, fucking go ahead at that point, because, whatever. You have nothing left to train. But if you have other cruisers and the like to train, don't focus on capitals with your main.
And get like tier 2 medium guns and shit like that. That takes 30 days
10
each
days.
gun, dude.
It
That's
takes 10
such a
days for a
fucking
new
pain
gun
in the
system.
dick.
10 days for
10 days?
Tech 2 medium. Yeah.
For medium?
Yes, takes 10
Tech
days.
2 mediums?
It takes 30 days for a cruiser to 5, basically, with no remap.
Nope.
Well, 16 days for Cruiser 5. But another reason
on a remap and implants. But if you're not remapped or skilled, then it's like 30 days.
Yeah. Another reason not to train caps on your main is, for the most part, like when you're using caps in an engagement or like in a pause match or something, you're just going to be sitting in station on your cap pilot. Like, you're going to be sitting in station until they call for caps, or maybe they won't call for caps. And on your main, if you're just sitting in station on your main for most fights, waiting to be called, it's not very fun, right? So you want to have that on an alt, so you can be actually flying and doing something on your main. And then if they call for Dreads login or like Dreads undock and Sino, you're ready to do that on an alt. So it's doing it on your main is all that training just to sit in station and do nothing until you may or may not be called to drop.
Basically, yeah. Any other questions?
What are no-no systems to go to because they are the base of notorious really large alliances or people that are generally
pretty
mean?
much anywhere that's not yours.
No, that's fine, dude. Like, there's like I know from exploring, there's a bunch of shitty like sassy ass miners in Western Catch in that little thing. There's like gate camps in that weird hook in Aquarius, and then other than that, there's nothing
Well, I mean,
nearby us.
they can put a bubble up and then voila, now you're dead. I mean, like, it's a very much a thing that, like, outside of your space, just assume, even in your space, just assume that someone's got it bubbled and you're gonna die.
Well, I don't know. Like, we're gonna have so many people. We're gonna have like, how many people do we have
Let's
online
look.
right now?
So,
53.
oh boy,
53. You have 53 people online.
That's
Like,
like,
just think about it. Do you be like, okay, we need 10 guys to kill these like fucking like 4 people on
trust
gate.
me, that's
like,
like
okay.
no one.
The region you are going to, you'll see fleets
Yeah,
of up to
they can
200
frequently
people.
summon up to like 200 to get in fleets easy. They are.
They
we
or
can't
us? What are you
anymore.
talking about?
PH and
Wait, who's
Norm.
they? Oh, where's PH?
That's
Is that Delve
Aquarius.
or is that Aquarius as well?
Aquarius.
That's where we're
Going
going.
about 10 jumps from us.
Okay, are they in that weird hook thing? You know that
PH
hook
live in
thing
A2
that,
attack.
like, let's say if you're like,
On Reddit, there's a map of how Aquarius is going to be laid out.
No, the map has been deleted.
So, can you give me a quick rundown of who's who in Null Sec? As in, yeah, I hear these names being thrown around. Like, I don't know, as a newer player, I don't really know who's who. Like, PL, goons, etc., etc. Who's friends with who hates who? Like,
So
a string of them.
it's,
I mean,
yeah,
I know
that's
it's a big
basically
question,
an
but-
impossible to answer question.
you'll just pick. You'll just pick it up. Yeah.
The problem is it changes
I'll
so
take a-
frequently.
I'll take a stab at it.
Okay, but just like, who
So-
are the 5 biggest?
So you have the Imperium. Okay? The Imperium was formerly known as the CFC, abbreviation for Clusterfuck Coalition. Central Corps and then it's Goons form. Colloquially referred to as Goons, Bees, Goonies, those people who ruined my region, so on and so forth. Next you have PL, which is Pandemic Legion, also known as why are there 200 supers all of a sudden here. Then you have other groups such as the Russians. You have people like, well, former BL. You have Test, who's out in Null Sec. And you have people like NC as well, which are the survivors. One of the survivors of the N3 coalition, which used to be quite big until they went to war with the Imperium, and well, that didn't turn out so well. Yeah, to end up disbanding. Additionally, there were other.
It wasn't the war. In
Additionally-
all honesty, it was the sub changes.
Additionally, there were other things. You'll have the new system encourages quote unquote smaller groups to take SOV, arguably. So you'll see regions where you have these smaller alliances basically just living next to each other and doing things. You also have PFR, which is one of the newer groups to emerge. Phoebe Freeport Republic, so on and so forth. Regarding who's friends with who, that's changed over the years, but broadly, the larger blocks are not really quote unquote friends with each other. They generally, you try to avoid getting into an all out war with the other party. But these are the major players in a way. If you have more specific questions, we can answer that for you.
No, that was a good rundown, I hope.
So the difference is that recently, like a lot of these older groups have established newbie-friendly organizations as well. So Pandemic Legion has Pandemic Horde, which is their new bro-friendly corporation or alliance. On the other hand, you have Karma Fleet, which is the new bro-friendly arm of Goonswarm. So these are, in the region that we are going to, you have NARM, which is the new bro-friendly arm of NC, also known as Northern Army. Is that that link?
That's the map. The other one got taken down by the looks of it.
Yeah, so if you look at that map that I hold linked in there, you can kind of see where
Gives you a general
everybody is
idea
at in the region.
of where people will kind of be at, and as well as what groups they are. So PH being, like you said, PL's Brave, basically. NARM being NC Dot's Brave.
And also it says the systems that you're not allowed in, which is UVH,
Which you can
and
assume
RF tech.
either a combination thereof of mining or super building. Mining, ratting, super building.
It's reading.
I think the weirdest thing when it comes to living in the south and the east is that the most powerful alliances are not the ones holding
Well, the
the
biggest
south.
thing is to remember, and this is very important about Coreus, is if you're a capital pilot, be very, 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 very careful about when you buy a capital in Coreus, because you will basically not get it out. Because the jump ranges anywhere else out of Coreus are ass.
So on this map, it also says renters, so which I assume is just people that have an understanding with other corporations that they will not shoot as long as they pay.
Well, they
so
get to
like
live there,
racketeering.
and in exchange, they pay
No,
us.
Yeah, it's not
Phoebe.
It's just that they could dock in the station. They don't have the not shooting part.
What's that?
Renters are people who pay for the economic value of the system. They live in the station, they mine the ore, they get the relic sites. When it comes to shooting them, that's a whole different story.
As you go into Null Sec, you're going to experience some changes. So, Null Sec obviously involves a lot of politics. So you're going to be exposed to that. How you deal with the politics of the situation is up to you. Some people respond favorably to it, some people dislike it. There are lots of opinions floating around. It's just the way it is.
So over here it says, do not enter this or that, and members should also not be in. Where else can I get this information? Because it seems pretty
That
interesting.
should be
It's the first time I
announced
see
to you.
it.
Okay, so so there will be an announcement towards the weekend. The exact date hasn't been announced yet because there's still work going on in the background to make sure that
So it'll be like a form
everything
announcement?
works. Nancy will make an announcement about this. This is something that got leaked to Reddit a while back, so it can be considered public information at this point.
But it'll be like on the forums or something.
Yes, if we
That's
move,
right.
it will be on the forums. There will be relevant information.
No, it's just like, there's
on
the
the
forums,
wiki.
there's the
It
wiki,
will
it can
probably
be like
on the
very,
Reddit. It will be everywhere, and there will most likely be a state of the alliance from our CEO about
Propaganda.
it. There will be propaganda being spewed out by at the max rate the virus can handle. You will notice. You will not miss us moving anywhere.
it's kind of hard to miss it. Yeah, like same goes with extraction, right? Like as long as you follow the 70-20-10 rule that Ahoda outlined, you'll be fine. Don't just like get carried away.
Hey guys,
If you don't follow it as soon as anyone extracts from anywhere because they get kicked out because space otherwhere is just much nicer, it doesn't really matter why, but you will immediately see who the people are that didn't follow the rule because they will be the ones who fire sale billions and billions worth of stuff because they just can't get it out.
Oh yeah, I have a question. This might be useful. Could you go over some of the more common scenarios that occurred in the case of an evac?
There's always panic. It's almost always a panic evac, especially in Brave, where we don't tend to make plans about what happens if shit goes wrong. We tend to just like the strategy of jump, freight, and pray. That tends to be.
No, we make plans. We make plans. We just don't follow them.
Our plans tend to boil down to jump, freight, and pray.
Maybe focus more on how it goes down instead.
Anyway, so then there's a lot of panic usually. What'll happen is you're trying to get, a lot of your shit out because inevitably people in here won't follow the 70-20-10 rule, even though I've just told you why you should follow it. And then, so what you're going to be trying to do is you're going to be trying to move a lot of stuff via jump freight assets. There's going to be hell camping a lot of times of your station that you're in, and as well as any midpoints that your jump freighters will use. So you'll have to try and constantly clear those. You'll try and be moving ships out in fleets. So there will be a lot of content. But however, a lot of times you will be outnumbered and outthink because people will burn out and stuff. But a lot of panic is the thing to expect from evacs, especially because people won't follow the 70-20-10 rule.
And especially because usually when it's an evac and not a move, it's because somebody just kicked your ass and you're gonna get out quickly. So they're gonna keep kicking your ass while you leave.
So, like, what about the opposite? How do I get stuff into Null from high sec? I mean, there's a hauler's channel, and as I understand it, in Null Sec you can use jump freighters. So, like, but these ships are probably so big that as a newbie, is it going to cost me a lot to have my stuff moved, or do I have to band together with other people?
Be like a really good question for Norman's.
Yeah, logistics director. There is something called BLT, but you'll have to ask him what the prices are going to look like.
Also, Norman will do a Q&A in 2 days, I think.
The 16th.
I'd have to look it up. So any freighting related questions, including how to get stuff to Null, how to use the Brave services, how to ship your own stuff if you have an alt or something that ships some of your own stuff, at least in HiSec. Ask him. He knows his shit. He can probably give you
super
the best
simply.
idea
We
on
have
how to do those things.
service in Brave to jump freight stuff around. So that's going to be what you're going to be using mainly to get stuff from like a HiSec to station if it's not already seeded.
What is required?
Yeah, sorry, 1 second, Kravik. Another thing you have to remember is that there will be people who will stock our market. So there will be people in Brave who ship stuff out there that will be commonly used, that will sell. So expect things to be on the market in Null. You most likely won't be. It won't be necessary to ship in every single thing that you need, but unless the market becomes very good, you'll still have to get in some stuff.
Hey guys, I got a question. Is there a long blue list this time?
You'll have to ask Alliance leadership on that.
No idea, with regard to Hoodly Blue.
So about the details, you'll have to wait until Nancy announces it. but basically the plan is to shoot at other people in Null, so no, the blue list shouldn't be too long. Also, none of us in here is a Diplo, so yeah.
We're coming after your alliance, Kravik. Get ready.
So, but basically, good.
Oh, you go ahead.
That means if I need a new ship, I have to find a jump freighter pilot that brings me the ship and the fit, if it's not on market, which is probably unlikely depending on what I need.
You don't need to find a jump freighter pilot. So there is a freighting corporation to just buy the stuff somewhere else, create a contract, and they will move it for you.
Okay.
But alternatively, some people might also do their own independent jump freighting contract things. Like a certain frequency.
Sure.
Can I jump something for you? Can I?
Also, for anyone who wonders how the Jump Freighting Corporation works, go to freight.bravecollective.com. There you can see which cargo volumes, collateral, and so on, how you have to set up the contract, how much you have to pay them, because jump freighting costs money, and they also want to make some money while
Well,
they
those numbers
spend
are going to
their
change
time shipping your stuff around.
on how much is,
I don't think, well, there's a bunch of systems supported to give you an idea. However,
I don't think that's going to be.
that will most likely change. That will most likely change towards.
It'll probably be more expensive because I believe all the ones that are currently supported are within one.
Just totally spitballing, it's probably going to be over 100 mil to do a full load.
I heard that it's 3 jumps or something.
Yeah, we'll know the details.
I have no clue about jump fighters,
specific
but
details.
that's what I heard.
Yeah, announcement comes out.
By the way, there is already a announcement by Nancy in the forums, like since half an hour or something, or an hour.
More questions.
It's probably not a good idea to fly a ship I buy somewhere. Let's say I buy it in Amar, which is at least halfway near to Aquarius, and just fly it from there to.
Yeah, because
Null,
the problem
right?
is you are going to have to, as you can see, to get into there, you are having to fly through space, through a choke point. And that choke point is not owned by us. So, as you can see, that choke point is held by NARM. So that gate very well may be camped quite frequently. So that is something to consider.
So someone, I mean, my preconceptions about Null were a bit different than what it really is. I've noticed that most of Null is most of the time completely empty, except for choke point systems and where people live, like where corporations or license stage out of. So on the topic of like getting from high sec to Null, not specifically getting to Aquarius, but just like as a general, what I'm trying to ask is, as more experienced players, are there certain places where you can just get from high sec to Null, and there's very little choke points? Like it's
Almost
easier
never.
to go through there.
Almost all choke points from high to Null will have camps on them because people are doing exactly what you think.
That is true, but from my experience, and I think most people would agree, going to Null Sec through low sec is always pretty safe in comparison.
It really depends.
So once you go to low
It
sec
really depends because, like, so if you know, like, pipes where you know people are going to be coming through, and you know you're going to get kills, those will be camped. But all high sec to Null will be camped. Like, look at head GP if you want an example of that, entirely. You will see that is all camped.
Never use that.
So
It's not like you're gonna be completely blocked off from high sec. Like if you look at the main staging from the BFR, like it's one jump
Yeah,
away
it's
from
one null
low
sec
sec.
jump not held by Brave away. That's the important bit to memorize.
So regarding your question about like high sec, low sec, and null sec, so if you like take a look at a map, right? See like a blob of high sec in the center, surrounded by low sec, intertwined with null sec on the outer edges. If you like Google, there's some dude like got a list of all the entry points into null, and is linked it with like the killboard data, so you can actually see how busy a particular transit is into a specific region in null sec.
That's really useful.
Yeah, but you know,
What
if
is it
something,
called?
I don't know, you'd have to Google it there, buddy.
Oh,
the other
okay.
way is like if you're like an explorer or something, or you know, could always use Thera.
Yeah, Thera. I mean, wormholes is really the easiest way, but like I said, if people know that you're gonna be moving stuff through, they will camp that gate, right? Because that just makes sense. More kill mails, more loot, all that fun stuff.
Yeah, it's just that like I was exploring and I was having difficulty with getting from high
wormholes.
to null and stuff. But then someone pointed out and realized that if you're on one of the outer edges systems, then you can go all the way around, and there's basically very little people there if you just go like stick to
Yeah,
the
the
very
best thing
edge
to do,
of the
honestly,
galaxy.
is just use wormholes to get in and out of null. If you're just trying to explore, Thera is really good for that. Like, you can use Eve Scout to find your way in and out of null. Through Thera. But yeah, so it's just something to consider.
Is Brave going to be using the same systems as the French Corps?
Brave will be moving into the Brave Collective again, so yes.
So no new systems, just the same systems.
Yeah. So one's on that. At least that's the current plan, but
Is there any
For more
activity?
details, wait until Nancy announces the details.
Is there any activity in null that decreases my security
you can't
status?
lose security status in null. You can hurt your standings with other high-sec corporations by doing pirate missions, but outside of those, you should be fine. Like, you shoot everyone.
And does ratting increase the security status?
Ratting severely increases your security status.
Putting you in a weird situation where once you live in null, nowhere to go but up your security status.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was wondering about. Okay.
Does when you're killing rats in order to increase your security status, are the rats in null, do they give better security status increases than elsewhere? Or is it just that like
The bounties are better, so you're more likely
better?
to do it, right? Because it's actually worth.
They might have a better security status.
Well,
increase.
so the way security status increases work is it's every tick, it takes the largest thing you killed, and then it gives you security status based on that. So like, you can kill one ship every 20 minutes and get the same amount of increase as if you killed 500 ships in that same amount of time. It doesn't matter. It's just the biggest one you killed.
20
minutes.
How much is it take?
20 minutes from the first rat you kill is a tick.
So wait, is it like common to just like kill one ship, fly off?
No, because you don't
return in
make
20
any
minutes?
ISK that
I
way.
don't get it.
Because the only thing you gain from that is a
Yeah,
security status.
and usually
Yeah, no, I'm talking from the mindset of just like, you know, people that go out and pirate
Then you
and
just
get
buy
really low
tags.
security status and then go out to null and
There's
Ah,
other
okay.
ways to increase your security status
Yeah,
that are
and
much
Where do you get-
faster.
you buy them
Where do
off
you
the
get
market,
tags?
like 90% of
No,
them.
Or,
Clone
No,
soldiers.
or
where
you,
do those people
or
get
you,
the tags?
you kill clone soldiers in Null Sec.
Clone soldiers?
It's a
a
type
specific.
of rats.
It's a specific type of rat. Yeah, they drop tags, and then there are like different types of tags, right? So people who don't need to use those tags, they'll put them up on the market. And then if you're someone who wants to increase your security status, you buy those tags and then you get over to your nearest friendly Concord office. You trade in the type of tags that they need along with a fee because you've been a bad person, and then you're clean again. And then there's a little slider that you can select, like how much security status you want to recover, and then like the tags and like the fee changes depending on what you're doing.
So, yeah, all these amazingly wonderful ship modules on market that are obviously from some dredge pirates like Sancha, whatever, disruptors, and so on, so on. Is that something you find in
So they spawn from faction spawns. They are very rare, but you can run into them while ratting in your anomalies, but usually belts is going to be where you find those, but it's not generally worth it to go belt to belt to find those things. Generally, it just happens to be a happenstance of you running into them either in DED sites or ratting anomalies. You're going to be getting them.
So there's rats in asteroid belts, and there's rats in anomalies. I mean, as well as on gates. But just for killing them for making
Anomalies
ISK,
100% of the time.
Better. Okay. Do the belt rats have any use other than being a nuisance to miners?
They pay a slight bit of ISK. And there aren't a lot of them.
I think the
So it's like easier.
I think the officer rats usually appear on belts, other places,
They
but not
do.
normal.
They appear in belts, but again, they're so rare as to not talk about. Like, they're like I said, you start finding officer spawns. You find 2 of them. Like, probably should like, I mean, hell, we went fountain for how long? We found 1 officer rat. Like, yeah, that kind of goes to say exactly how rare. Any other ones?
How are wormholes in Null Sec for ratting?
Depends. I mean, like, they are good, but you're generally outside of a few ships or ISK, you're going to need a fleet. In that most of the time they tend to connect to C5s and C6s, which are the higher class of wormholes, which take a decent amount of ship and shields and newt prevention to do.
When is Nancy supposed to be making the announcement?
Do you mean the announcement or the announcement of the announcement?
The actual announcement, not the announcement that there's going to be an announcement.
Well, you should read the
Hasn't said
announcement
yet, but
on the forums.
There should be an announcement of the announcement.
That says
Yeah, if you go on the forums, there's an announcement of the announcement.
he
If you
says
go through
this
that,
weekend.
he might have mentioned when the announcement. There you go. So if you read the announcement of the announcement, you'll know when the announcement is.
Anyway, any other questions before we call it dunsies? Yes. No. Alright.
Fair enough.